The glass door swung open, and in that split second, a quiet bank branch stood at the edge of a cliff. 9:05 a.m. The April wind cut across East Broad Avenue, Columbus. Jordan Ellis pulled her silver Tesla to the curb, switched off the engine in silence, the dense silence of someone accustomed to power, someone who never needed to flaunt it. She was 42, her natural curls tied into a neat low bun, thin gold earrings, perfectly clean nails, black trousers, a fitted navy blouse, no assistant, no bodyguard, no one clearing a path. Her footsteps touched the tiled floor, the faint smell of watered-down coffee and printer ink filling her breath. Light from the wide windows washed the lobby in a cold white glaze. On the wall, a screen streamed financial news without sound, only green and red numbers dancing like fireflies trapped behind glass. Jordan nodded politely at the middle-aged man in khaki pants at the reception desk. He looked up, his eyes sliding over her like a flyer, then dropped back to the monitor. Not a word. Jordan's face remained unchanged. She moved straight toward the business services area as if the room already belonged to her, because legally it nearly did. Her company, Vanguard Systems, had just acquired Midwest Trust in a sudden deal, and for the entire week, Jordan had been visiting branches herself, inspecting readiness before new operating standards were enforced. Behind the glass counter, two tellers leaned into each other, voices stretched thin like a thread. One, white, red-lipped, hair pulled into a tight bun, her name tag flashing Rachel under the lights. The other, of Indian descent, Meera, flipping through a manila folder, papers whispering like sighs. Neither looked up. Jordan stopped at the yellow line. She waited, patient. A woman with oversized sunglasses and a coach bag entered behind her, heading straight to personal banking. Instantly, Meera lit up like a switch flipped. "Good morning, how can I help you today?" she sang in honeyed tones. Jordan kept waiting. 10 seconds. 20. 30. The lobby stretched into infinity. She cleared her throat lightly. Rachel's eyes flicked up, skimming Jordan's face, pausing for half a second on the gold earrings, then dropping to the blouse that bore no recognizable luxury logo. "Yes." Her voice was clipped, as if Jordan had interrupted something more interesting. "I need to see the business account officer," Jordan said, her tone level, neither high nor low. "I called yesterday. They said Daniel would be available from 9 to noon. Rachel's lips curled into a half-smile, the kind that sliced quick and thin like a razor across paper. "This usually requires an appointment, ma'am. We don't process conversion files at the counter." "I did make an appointment," Jordan repeated, eyes fixed. "Is Daniel not here yet?" Rachel's eyes darted side to side, her fingers clattering on the keyboard, shoulders lifting and falling as if she had carried the whole system herself. "Not yet." "You can have a seat. We'll call you when ready." Jordan turned. 3 empty cushioned chairs. The wall clock ticked to 9:07. She sat, her back straight, leather bag resting on her lap, her pulse steady, though her gaze had sharpened. A soft instrumental of Ain't No Mountain, high enough floated above, drifting like a misplaced cloud. Time began to stretch. A middle-aged man in a blue polo walked in. Rachel brightened as if her personality had been switched. They laughed, asked about his daughter's school, shook hands, the rip of his receipt loud as applause. He left behind a glittering trail of small talk. Jordan rose. "Excuse me," she said, back at the counter. "Has Daniel arrived yet?" Rachel smiled, a smile that never touched her eyes. "Not yet. I did tell him you're waiting. If Daniel isn't here, is there anyone else who can handle this now?" We'll call you when we're ready, ma'am. Each word fell like a stone into water. No ripples. Jordan nodded slowly, returned to her seat. She didn't fidget. Her stillness began to bother someone. 5 more minutes passed. A young couple entered. The husband's eyes skimmed Jordan like she was part of the decor, then vanished into a glass-walled office. The door closed, sealing in laughter. Jordan stood again, moving past the counter toward the office hallway. There, a young black employee wearing headphones, Alana Brooks, hurried over, hand gently at her chest, a gesture of courtesy. "May I help you, ma'am? I need to see Daniel, or anyone handling business accounts," I called ahead. "Of course, let me check the schedule." "May I have your name?" "Jordan Ellis." Alana's eyes flickered, recognition flashing instantly. That name was familiar to anyone who had read last week's internal email carefully. Jordan Ellis, the woman who signed the papers pulling an entire bank from old to new. "Yes, ma'am." Alana hesitated only a second, then firmly said, "I'll alert the branch manager immediately." Jordan nodded. "Thank you." Her voice softened slightly. Back in the lobby, she pulled out her phone. A message from the COO lit up. "How's the Broad Street branch holding up?" Jordan's fingers hovered. She could type, "fine," squeezing everything into polite diplomacy. But politeness was often a form of delay. Not yet. "Give me 10 minutes." She sent it. The phone slipped back into her bag. From behind the glass, a whisper drifted like a draft through a crack. "Don't know why she's still sitting there," Rachel muttered, low enough to seem private, but loud enough for the right ears. "Doesn't even look like she belongs in the business suite." Mira chuckled. "Some people think a business card means they can get whatever they want." Jordan didn't turn. A small muscle in her jaw twitched, the only visible signal of the wave beneath. She recorded it, not for revenge, but as a marker. The door opened and instantly swept the air clean. A silver-haired man in a charcoal suit entered, his nameplate shining cold on his chest. Gregory Shaw, Regional Director. At the counter, bodies straightened unconsciously, like grass struck by sudden wind. Gregory's eyes scanned the room and locked onto Jordan at once, not for her appearance, but for the way she sat, upright, still, and unapologetically present. "Ms. Ellis?" His voice was steady and low. Jordan rose. "Yes. I'm Gregory Shaw, Regional Director. I believe there's been a misunderstanding. Shall we step into a private room?" His eyes darted toward the counter, a silent glance sharp as a needle. "We can talk here," Jordan replied. No raised tone, no smile, just placing the words in the center of the lobby like a marker. Gregory paused a beat. "Of course." He turned to the counter, his voice suddenly ringing against glass and ceiling like an alarm bell. "All floor staff, meeting room. Now." A velvet silence dropped heavy. Rachel frowned. "Why, sir? You'll be briefed in 5 minutes. Meeting room. Now." Eyes darted, hands scrambled to gather papers, chairs scraped against the floor. The smug curve of lips from moments earlier vanished as if it never existed. Jordan reached for her phone, not seeking support, only laying a stone. "Connect me to the COO," she said, her eyes on the meeting room glass. Gregory nodded, already dialing with swift, practiced hands. Jordan stood firm, upright, silent. She didn't need words like hammer blows. Her silence carried weight, pulling the air down until stray whispers shattered against the floor tiles. Inside, chairs lined up. Mira sat, eyes fixed on the desk. Rachel crossed her arms, shoulders hunched as if a draft had cut down her spine. A young man, Derek, perched on the edge of his seat, knuckles white. No jokes, no chatter. Jordan entered without pause. No theatrical timing needed. Her presence itself was climax. "I came here this morning," she began, her voice smooth as polished wood, cool and flat as a representative of the entity that has acquired this bank. "I sat in the lobby. 30, then 40 minutes. I was told to wait. Then I was forgotten. Eyes lowered. I don't need special treatment. I don't need a red carpet. The only thing I need and expect is respect for anyone who walks in here." In that moment, Jordan saw her reflection in the glass. A woman who didn't need anger to make a room hold its breath. She remembered nights signing files until exhaustion, endless calls with lawyers until dawn, board presentations where every number was a strained tendon. None of that required shouting. It only required setting the standard. The door burst halfway open. A young man with a crooked tie, Daniel, stumbled in, breath uneven. He froze at the sight of Jordan, then Gregory, then the rows of staff like a class caught in a surprise inspection. "What's happening, Handled?" Jordan cut in, her gaze final, planting a full stop before his question could form. Daniel stood adrift, as if someone had yanked the chair from under him. Outside, the front desk sat empty. In the lobby, a new customer pushed through the door, looking around, confused. Alana stepped forward, whispering an apology, guiding him back gently. Her voice soft yet firm. In the meeting room, Jordan set her bag down behind a chair, the motion precise and clean, like the clauses of an M&A contract she had sharpened her entire career. "I'm not here to humiliate anyone," she said. "I'm here to fix. When a system allows staff to judge a customer by looks and prejudice, that system is already fractured." From the corner, Gregory stood with arms crossed, gaze heavy as a verdict already written. He had seen transitions through 4 ownerships. But what chilled him was the difference. The woman before him didn't wield the word procedure as a shield. She used it like a scalpel, cutting decay without hesitation. Jordan glanced at her phone. A notification. "Line ready with COO." She locked the screen. No rush. Sometimes the equation of ethics is solved with a single minute of silence. She raised her head. Her gaze swept across each face, pausing on Rachel long enough for shame to surface. "I have 2 questions," Jordan said, each syllable dropping like stone on tile. "First, why was I twice passed over for people who arrived after me? Second, why was there a comment that I didn't look like I belonged in the business suite?" No one answered. Not because they didn't know, but because they knew too well. Derek swallowed hard. Mira bit her lip, color drained. Rachel opened her mouth, then shut it, like a door slammed. Cold sweat crept at her nape. Jordan didn't push further. She wasn't hunting heads. She was setting standards. She inhaled, smoothed her blouse, a small gesture that seemed to level the entire room's pulse. Then she nodded lightly at Gregory. For a second, everyone expected her to shout, rage, slam the table. But she didn't. Jordan spoke only 4 words, slow, deliberate, like a needle against skin. Time to raise standards. No one knew exactly what would follow those 4 words. Only that outside, the wind had shifted across the parking lot. And inside, chairs suddenly felt harder, lower, forcing straighter spines. At the counter, the door chime rang, clear and bright. A morning that had seemed ordinary had just split itself into 2 halves before Jordan walked in and after she said time to raise standards. One truth still remained hidden in her bag, pressed close to her phone. A matte black ID card embossed with the words, Jordan Ellis, Chief Executive Officer, Vanguard Systems. She hadn't shown it. She didn't need to. Because before her title was revealed, the standard had already been overturned, and when that card appeared, it would not be an explanation. It would be a sentence. The air in the meeting room was so tight that a single breath could tear it open. Eyes dropped, avoided, then were pulled back up by Jordan's presence. She did not raise her voice. She didn't need to. The entire room already understood that each word she spoke would land like weight on their shoulders. Gregory Shaw, the regional director, stood with arms crossed against the wall. He had witnessed dozens of mergers, had seen CEOs come and go, some slamming tables in anger, others pretending to be friendly, then quietly slashing staff behind the scenes. But Jordan was different. She did not perform. She never used noise to assert power. Power radiated from the way she was silent, and that silence made the entire room hold its breath. An unexpected sound cut through, a click as the door swung open again. Daniel, the business manager mentioned from the start, stumbled in, breathing hard. His white shirt was wrinkled, his tie skewed to one side, his hair a mess as if he had run from the parking lot. He froze, eyes sweeping the room, employees seated like guilty students, Gregory standing like a proctor, and Jordan, the woman whose name he had only skimmed in a few internal emails, seated at the center, her gaze razor-sharp. "What is happening here?" Daniel asked, his voice catching. Jordan turned her head and looked straight at him. "You are late. Only 3 words. Nothing more. Enough to make Daniel feel stripped bare before the group." He stammered, I didn't know." "Exactly," Jordan cut in, clean as a blade. "You didn't know? I sat in the lobby for 40 minutes. I was told to wait. Meanwhile, other customers were greeted with smiles and handshakes. I was ignored, even turned into a topic of conversation." Rachel shifted, her eyes flicking to Daniel as if to plead for help. But Daniel understood instantly. Today no one could save anyone. Gregory gave a slight nod, signaling Jordan to continue. This was no longer an internal work session. It was a silent tribunal, where every piece of evidence was a look, and the truth could not be brushed away. Jordan rose. Her heel tapped once on the floor, hollow like a gavel strike. "I do not need privileges," she began, her voice firm and clear, each word dropping like a marker. "But I demand standards. If you cannot offer the bare minimum of respect to the person who walks through the door, then you do not deserve to move forward with this system." A soft sniffle sounded. Patricia, a long-tenured and quiet employee, kept her head bowed, shoulders trembling. Please hear us," she whispered. "What happened this morning? It has always been like that. We meant nothing by it." Jordan turned, her gaze so cold it made the whole room shrink. "Exactly. It has always been like that. And that is why it must stop here." For a moment, the space froze. No one dared breathe hard. Gregory even felt his spine prickle. He was not the one being criticized, but that calm authority made even him stand more upright. Then Jordan lowered her voice, not a shout, but a whisper, the kind that echoes in the listener's head. "It is time to pull off the mask." She opened her bag and took out a black card. Light from the ceiling reflected off the embossed letters. Jordan Ellis, Chief Executive Officer, Vanguard Systems. The card needed no explanation. It was the naked truth. The woman they had belittled, snickered at, left waiting for dozens of minutes in the lobby, was the new owner of the entire bank chain. Rachel's mouth fell open, her lips quivering as if words were trying to escape, and failed. Derek went still, sweat beading on his forehead. Mira lowered her head, hands clasped so tightly her knuckles turned white. Daniel stood petrified, his heartbeat in disarray. Jordan lifted her chin. "I have nothing more to say. You have shown for yourselves who deserves to stand here, and who does not." The room exploded into silence, the kind of silence 1,000 times heavier than any scolding. And this was only the beginning of the sentence Jordan was about to deliver. The meeting room was thick, as if someone had sealed every window to trap the space in heavy air. Faces stayed lowered. The ticking of the clock's second hand was louder than breathing, and Jordan stood there, her back straight, her gaze cutting through like a cold blade. "What do you think I came here for?" she asked, her voice low, slow, yet resonant. No one answered. The question hung, choking every throat. Jordan stepped forward, her heels striking the tile. Click, 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 each sound like a hammer blow. "I came here as a customer who deserves to be heard. You do not need to know who I am. You do not need to know how many shares I hold, how many contracts I sign. The only thing you need to know is this: I deserve respect, just like anyone who walks through that door." Rachel shuddered, the arrogance painted on her red lips now washed away, leaving only pallor. Jordan stopped, turned, her eyes locking on each face. But what did I receive? Scrutinizing stares, mocking laughter, and a silence that dismissed me as if I had no place in that lobby. Patricia could not hold back. She broke down in tears. "Please, please give us another chance. You don't understand. Everything." "No," Jordan cut in, her voice cold as steel. I understand very well. It is exactly because things have always been this way that I must stand here today." She pulled out her phone. A single tap. The screen lit up. Effective immediately, Rachel Carter, Derek Nolan, and Patricia Singh will no longer belong to this branch. Termination letters will reach you today. Your access cards are deactivated at once. Your final pay will be mailed. The room exploded in a stunned silence. Derek opened his mouth to protest, but his voice died in his throat. Patricia sobbed, her trembling hands unable to steady. Rachel froze, eyes red and glassy with restrained tears. Jordan lowered the phone, her tone gentler, but never weak. "This is not revenge. This is a standard. If you cannot grasp the meaning of basic respect, you do not deserve to work in a financial institution." Gregory Shaw watched, his face half astonishment, half admiration. He had seen many CEOs, but never one who made decisions so quickly, so coldly, yet still sounded like a lecturer, never needing to shout. Jordan turned to the rest of the team, her gaze softened slightly, though still sharp. "The rest of you will remain, but not to continue as before. There will be a full retraining program, step by step, process by process, and I will oversee it." A strange wind seemed to sweep through the room. Those left raised their heads, filled with both fear and relief. They had just watched colleagues cut off before their eyes, yet they had been granted a second chance. Jordan drew in a breath, then delivered her closing words slowly. "I am not here to babysit grown adults. I am here to build a standard. If anyone refuses to change, the door is right there." The room was dead silent, but in that silence, a seed had been planted, and it would grow, not from fear, but from the realization that a single act of disrespect could collapse a career in 10 minutes. Jordan turned and walked out of the meeting room, and when the door closed behind her, everyone knew this morning that seemed ordinary would haunt them for years to come. The meeting room door had just closed. The long hallway seemed to swallow the hurried breaths still lingering inside. Jordan walked slowly, each step steady, her face showing no anger, only calm. But within her, every detail of the morning was rearranging itself like pieces on a chessboard. Those in the right place she would keep, those out of place she would remove without hesitation. And on that board, there was one piece that stood apart. Jordan noticed Alana Brooks at the reception desk, headset still over her ears, clutching a small tablet tightly. The young woman, around 26, had bright eyes that now carried a trace of tension as Jordan approached. There was still fear, but also a rare firmness. Jordan stopped in front of Alana. The lobby was silent, only the faint strains of instrumental music rippling in the distance. "You were the first to call me by name," Jordan said, her voice even, neither high nor low, "and the only one who asked what I needed, instead of pretending to be busy." Alana swallowed, her hands clasping together tightly. I just did what everyone should have done." Jordan tilted her head slightly, the corner of her lips forming the faintest trace of a smile. "Wrong. You did not just do what everyone should have done, because clearly, this morning, no one else was willing to do it." An awkward silence fell. Other employees peeked nervously from the crack of the meeting room door, their eyes a mixture of fear and regret. Jordan lowered her voice, yet every word struck like a drumbeat. "Someone like you deserves to be kept, and not only kept, but given a chance." Alana's eyes widened, unable to believe what she had just heard. "A chance?" Jordan nodded lightly. "Have you ever considered project management, or higher? I see caution, respect, and instinct in you, qualities not everyone has. That is the foundation of leadership." Tears welled in Alana's eyes. For years she had grown accustomed to being overlooked, given menial tasks, ignored during meetings. A single recognition, spoken by the CEO herself, the woman who had just silenced an entire room, was like a new map unfolding before her. "Thank you, Jordan," Alana whispered, her voice trembling but growing steadier. Jordan placed a light hand on her shoulder. "Do not thank me. Thank your own instinct. The instinct that respect is not procedure, it is instinct. Keep it. Do not let any environment take it from you." In that moment, Alana Brooks was no longer just a receptionist. She became living proof that in a team full of prejudice, there could still be someone who chose the right way to act. Jordan turned to leave, leaving behind a young woman whose eyes held both confusion and a newfound glow of conviction. Inside Alana, one thought echoed without end. For the first time, perhaps, someone truly saw me. And in that moment, a new path for her entire life began. Gregory Shaw stood at the end of the hallway, watching the conversation that had just unfolded. His eyes revealed both surprise and admiration. In over 30 years in the business, he had seen countless purges in banking. A new director walks in, crosses out a list of names, then leaves like someone cutting weeds. But Jordan was different. She did not cut down everything. She chose. Jordan turned toward Gregory. Their eyes met. He immediately understood this was the time for a candid conversation. They stepped into the now empty meeting room. On the table, a few files remained scattered, pens forgotten. The air still carried the scent of tension. Gregory closed the door softly, then said, "Ms. Ellis, I have witnessed many acquisitions, but the way you acted, quick, decisive, and yet leaving such a powerful aftertaste, I must admit, even I felt a chill." Jordan sat down, her fingers tapping lightly against the wooden surface. "I do not care who felt a chill. I care about standards. A financial institution cannot survive if its employees are allowed to judge customers by clothes, skin color, or handbags. Gregory nodded. I understand. But how do you want me to implement this? More cuts, or a new mechanism? Jordan leaned back in her chair, her eyes fixed on the bright ceiling lights. Cutting is easy, but easy does not last. I want complete retraining. Not just the staff left in this branch, every branch in the Columbus cluster. If a toxic culture has taken root, the soil must be pulled up, not just a single weed. Gregory exhaled heavily. He knew what that meant. Weeks of training, massive costs, pressure from middle management. But he also knew if Jordan had said it, then the decision was final. What kind of message do you want? He asked. Jordan leaned forward, her eyes flashing. Clear, direct, without ambiguity. Respect is not optional, it is an obligation. Anyone who cannot accept that, the door is right there. The corner of Gregory's mouth curved slightly, a weary smile laced with respect. Clearly, I don't need to write a report to the board. I just need to repeat those exact words. Jordan closed a file on the table, her gaze lifting toward the glass wall, reflecting a sky growing heavy with clouds. Gregory, you have served under many owners. But I want you to remember this. I did not come here to sign papers and disappear. I came to set a standard, and that standard will remain here, even when I am gone. He nodded slowly. In his eyes, for the first time, he saw a CEO who cared not just for balance sheets, but for the soul of the system itself. In that moment, Gregory understood. This morning was not merely about a few employees losing their jobs. It was the beginning of a cultural reckoning, a warning to anyone who thought prejudice and indifference could hide behind the glass counters of a bank. Jordan pushed open the meeting room door. The long hallway, the empty bank lobby, felt as heavy as a storm about to break. She did not leave immediately. Instead, she stopped at the large glass window, gazing out at the parking lot. Dark clouds gathered from the west, drifting like slabs of steel across the sky. She stood still, arms crossed, her face calm, while in her mind the gears of a great machine of change turned relentlessly, putting every detail of the morning into place, keeping what was right, cutting out what was wrong. Inside, chaos was spreading. Rachel had locked herself in the break room, mascara running, fingers trembling on her phone as she likely called someone for help. Derek perched on the edge of the conference table, pale, eyes vacant, as if he had lost his bearings. Patricia buried her face in her hands, quietly sobbing. No one dared crack a joke now. Gregory stood in the middle of the room, phone pressed to his ear, his voice low but firm. Yes, Ellis. She never raised her voice. Not once. But everything was handled, decisively. He hung up, took a deep breath, then glanced toward Daniel, lurking in the corner. You're lucky. If you had said a single wrong word this morning, you would already be gone with them. Daniel swallowed hard, his voice cracking. I didn't even know she was here. Exactly, Gregory replied, his gaze sharp as a blade. And that's the problem. She sat out there nearly 40 minutes, a CAO, a customer, a human being, and none of us saw her. Out in the parking lot, a green Toyota pulled in. The door opened, and out stepped a solid man with neatly trimmed salt and pepper beard, dressed in a charcoal blazer. Marcus Lane, COO of Vanguard Systems. Rumor had it he had fired a dozen employees before breakfast and closed multi-million-dollar deals before lunch. He walked toward Jordan, his stride steady and firm. Everything okay? Marcus asked, his voice deep and sure. Jordan gave a small nod. Okay. But HR will need to rewrite the entire retraining module. We can't let these roots spread elsewhere. Marcus exhaled, pulled out his phone, his fingers moving quickly. I'll draft it tonight. Do you want me to alert the comms team? This morning will leak sooner or later. Jordan met his eyes directly. I hope it leaks. Her voice was light, yet the weight in it made Marcus pause mid-gesture. He nodded, asking no more. He had worked with Jordan long enough to understand. When she wanted news to spread, it was not for show, but for warning. A brief silence followed. Then Marcus asked, "And the young woman with the headset in the lobby?" I heard Gregory mention her. For the first time that morning, Jordan smiled, if only faintly. Alana Brooks. She was professional. She never obstructed. She simply listened and responded the right way. Someone like that, I want to keep long-term. Marcus tapped quickly on his phone, noted, I'll set her on a development track, 6 months trial, then project management consideration. Jordan nodded. But first, I want to meet her again. Today. A strong gust swept across the lot, scattering dry leaves. Jordan remained still, her eyes locked on the building in front of her. Inside, the employees who had been terminated wept, those who remained trembled, and Alana, the only one who had chosen the right path, was preparing to step into the light. And in that storm, Jordan knew this was not just another morning in Columbus. It was a resounding warning to the entire system. The glass door opened, and Alana Brooks stepped into the lobby. In her hands was a small notebook, a pen clipped to it, trembling slightly, as if it were the only shield she had against the weight of the morning. Her eyes darted quickly, then settled on Jordan and Marcus, standing beside the silver Tesla. Alana's heart pounded. She had witnessed it all, Jordan's silence, the sudden verdict, the collapsed faces in the meeting room. She knew she was just a frontline employee, someone who could disappear in a day without anyone noticing. But now, the CEO had called her name. "Ms. Ellis wants to see you," Gregory said from behind her, his voice still hoarse from the shock. Alana took a deep breath and walked forward. Each step felt like walking across glass, afraid it might crack beneath her. Jordan turned, her eyes meeting hers. It was not the look of scrutiny, nor of pity, but one of measure, as if she were a scale weighing her presence. "You are Alana Brooks?" Jordan asked. "Jordan." "Yes, ma'am." Alana's voice trembled. "Do not call me ma'am. Call me Jordan." Alana froze. A CEO allowing her to use her first name? She nodded quickly. "Yes, Jordan." Jordan tilted her head, her gaze sharp but not cold. "Tell me, why this morning when I asked to see Daniel, did you not try to brush me off like the others? Why did you stop and listen?" Alana swallowed. "Because I recognized your name, Jordan, in the internal notice. But even if I had not, I could tell you were not someone who came in casually. The way you walked, your eyes, it was clear you had purpose. And I thought, anyone who comes in with that kind of determination deserves to be heard." A long silence followed, broken only by the wind sweeping across the lot. Jordan pressed her lips together, then gave a small nod. A good answer. A very good answer. Marcus stood nearby, quickly typing notes into his phone, but Jordan raised her hand slightly, her eyes pressing the point. This part was hers. She stepped closer, her voice lowering. "Have you ever considered project management? Or higher?" Alana's eyes widened. I've dreamed of it. But honestly, I never thought the opportunity would come. In my position, most of us just hope to finish a shift without mistakes." Jordan placed her hand gently on the notebook Alana clutched tightly. From today, I want you to keep that dream and turn it into a plan. Marcus will reach out and put you into a 6-month development program. If you prove yourself, you will take the next step." Alana's lips trembled, but a smile slowly spread, light glowing in her tear-filled eyes. "Thank you, Jordan. I won't fail this trust." Jordan squeezed her shoulder lightly, sending a quiet yet powerful energy through her. "Do not thank me. Thank yourself for doing the right thing when no one else did." Alana nodded firmly, as if engraving every word into her heart. In that moment, beneath the darkening sky and the storm rolling in, Jordan knew she had just planted a seed, and that seed, when it grew, would not only change one life, but perhaps change an entire generation. The next morning at exactly 9 o'clock, the glass doors of the East Broad branch should have swung open as usual, but today they stayed still. A hastily printed sheet of paper was taped to the glass, closed until 10:30 a.m. for staff reorganization and compliance training. Outside, a few customers frowned, checked their watches, and muttered. Inside, the meeting room that yesterday had been filled with nervous laughter and whispers had now become a silent tribunal. The swivel chairs faced the long table where Gregory Shaw stood tall, holding a thick stack of documents. On the cover, bold letters read, "Vanguard Systems Service Culture Training Protocol." He handed copies to the remaining employees. Daniel sat in the corner, reading each line as if it were a final exam, sweat glistening at his temples. And there was Alana, no longer just a receptionist, but seated in the very front row, pen ready, taking notes diligently. No one questioned why she was there. Everyone had seen it. She was chosen by Jordan Ellis. Gregory spoke, his voice heavy but firm. What happened yesterday was not just a mistake, it was a wake-up call. Miss Ellis could have closed this branch entirely, fired everyone, and no one could have faulted her. But she did not. She gave you a second chance. The question is, will you value it? The air dropped into silence. No one dared blink too long. Meanwhile, a few blocks away at Vanguard Systems HR headquarters, Jordan sat with Marcus Lane and the senior management team. The conference table was piled high with files, HR reports, payroll lists, performance reviews. Jordan flipped through each page, her eyes scanning quickly but carefully. Marcus leaned toward her and asked quietly, "Are you certain about keeping Daniel?" He stood by while everything happened. Jordan did not look up. He was careless, not malicious. People like that, corrected at the right time, can still grow. I do not fire to take revenge. I fire to uproot toxic habits. Daniel is not toxic. He is just asleep. Marcus nodded slightly, a hint of respect in his eyes. You play the long game. Jordan closed the file, aligning the stack of papers neatly in front of her. I always play the long game. A cautious HR advisor spoke up. And what about Alana Brooks? Where do you want to place her? Jordan leaned back, a faint smile crossing her face, rare after such a tense day. Put her on a 6-month development track. After that, rotate her into an assistant manager role to train under pressure. I want her to become the pivot for this entire branch. Marcus wrote it down immediately, then added, You are betting on her. Jordan's gaze was steady. No, I am not betting. I am investing. Because she invested her trust in doing what was right when no one else dared to. The room fell into silence. But it was not the silence of fear from yesterday. It was agreement. Something was being rebuilt from the roots up. At 10:45, the meeting room of the East Broad branch was still closed. Light from the glass panels cast down on heavy faces. They were no longer the carefree employees who once gossiped behind the counter. Today, they sat upright like students before a final exam. Gregory Shaw placed a stack of documents on the table, lifted his head, and spoke with a voice that struck like a gavel. Listen carefully. What happened yesterday was not just a chaotic morning. It was a warning to the entire system. You must understand this. Miss Ellis had every authority to erase this branch completely and rebuild from scratch. But she did not. She gave you a chance. The last chance. A chair creaked softly. Daniel, sitting in the corner, slowly raised his hand. Not high, just enough to be noticed. His voice was hoarse. If we fix our mistakes, what does that look like? Gregory looked straight at him, his eyes cold, but not cruel. Fixing mistakes begins with humility. It begins with looking directly at a customer without judging them by their shoes, their wallet, or their skin color. It begins with silence when you should be listening, and with words when you should be helping. Daniel swallowed and nodded. He knew this was a lesson meant for him. During the short break after training, Alana sat alone at a small table, her notebook spread open, her pen tapping lightly as she tried to steady herself. She was still trembling after Jordan Ellis had called her by names the day before. The door opened quietly. Daniel entered, holding 2 paper cups of coffee. He walked over and placed one in front of her. "For you?" Alana looked up, her eyes flashing with a trace of suspicion. "Thank you." Daniel stood there, unsure where to begin. Finally, he exhaled and said simply, "I'm sorry." Alana raised her eyebrows. "Sorry for what?" "For not seeing what was happening right in front of me. For letting Ms. Ellis sit there, ignored. And for not stepping up when I should have. I should have noticed. I should have acted. But I let it slip by as if nothing was wrong." Alana was silent for a moment, then gave a small nod. "I appreciate the apology. And perhaps Miss Ellis also saw that you still had the ability to change. If not, you would not be sitting here today." Daniel gave a small smile, tinged with both embarrassment and relief. "Maybe so. But I know from now on I cannot sit still anymore. If I have another chance, I will use it to prove myself." Alana studied him for another second, then closed her notebook. "Then prove it. Not for me. For yourself." Out in the hallway, Gregory caught fragments of the exchange, the corner of his mouth curving into the faintest smile. He knew culture never changes in a single day. But in small moments like these, in an apology, in a recognition, in a chance taken, the ship begins to turn. And somewhere high above, in Vanguard's headquarters, Jordan Ellis was surely smiling. Because she knew true change didn't lie in the shock of firings, but in the seeds quietly sprouting beneath the surface. 3 days later, Jordan Ellis drove to a smaller branch, tucked in a quiet neighborhood in northern Columbus. No luxury Tesla, no entourage, just her in a simple coat, hair tied neatly back. The glass door opened, a soft chime ringing out. "Good morning. How can I help you today?" A young teller greeted her with a smile the moment she stepped inside. No introductions, no titles, yet Jordan was invited to sit, offered water, and treated with careful attention. She transferred funds, cashed a check, and asked a few test questions. Every answer came back clear and respectful. As she left the counter, she placed her business card down. The teller's eyes widened when he saw the embossed words, CEO, Vanguard Systems. But Jordan only gave a small nod and said, "Keep serving people exactly as you did today. That's enough. No drama, no shock, just a moment of quiet. But for Jordan, it was the very standard she sought. Respect given naturally, without needing to know who was in front of you. That afternoon, at headquarters in Cincinnati, Jordan sat before 18 new interns. Young faces, stiff collared shirts, eyes wide with both eagerness and nerves. They knew they were in the presence of one of the most powerful female CEOs in finance. But Jordan didn't begin with charts or PowerPoint slides. She folded her arms, looked each of them in the eye, and said, "I will tell you something the books never teach. Something I witnessed with my own eyes only a few days ago." The room went silent. People will look at you and think they know you by your name, your skin color, or your shoes. They will measure your worth with cheap rulers, but never, ever measure yourself by their ruler. A young woman with braided hair raised her hand, her voice trembling. Is it hard, staying calm in the face of blatant injustice? Jordan smiled, her eyes softening. Hard? Of course. Very hard, I wanted to shout, to flip the whole room upside down. But shouting teaches nothing. It is silence that makes others hear their own voices, and it was silence that forced them to change. She stood, picked up a marker, and wrote 4 large words across the whiteboard. Respect doesn't wear labels. Remember this, Jordan said firmly as she turned back to them. Respect does not come from titles. It does not come from wallets. It does not come from appearances. Respect is the only standard that every one of us must extend to others. A young man at the back of the room quietly brushed away a tear, hiding it quickly behind his hand. Pens across the tables moved faster, capturing every word. Jordan set down the marker, finishing with a short but resonant sentence. The world will not change through shouts and slogans, but through the moment you choose to do the right thing when no one is watching. The room erupted in applause, but Jordan only nodded quietly. She knew the seed planted today would one day grow into a forest. The story does not close with the sound of a gavel, nor with numbers on a balance sheet. It ends with a reminder. Respect is a standard, not a reward. Jordan Ellis walked into a bank branch as an ordinary customer and walked out as a warning to an entire system. But this is not only a story about a powerful CEO. It is a mirror reflecting each of us. Have you ever witnessed someone being dismissed simply because of their appearance, their status, or their background? And in that moment, what did you do? Did you choose silence and turn away? Or did you choose to stand firm and give them the respect they deserved? Because sometimes change does not come from a billion-dollar decision. Change comes from a fair glance, a timely word, a small but courageous act. And so, the question Jordan left behind is also the question for you. What will you do the next time you see injustice unfolding right in front of you?